Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sharirasya cha vaidyakena yopakarottam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjalimanatosmi laye sambodhayet chittam vikshiptam shamayet punaha sakashayam vijaniyat samapraptam na chalayet. Om. So in our last class we concluded the second chapter, the Sadhana Pada. Now we'll go into the third of the fourth chapter, which is it is called by Patanjali as Vibhuti Paada. So first let us try to examine the word Vibhuti itself. This is the word. Vibhuti has several meanings. The most widely used sense is with relation to a sacred ash, so which we are bhasma, which we actually put on our foreheads. And that Vibhuti, it can be from the ashes of the Yajna Kunda, because in the ancient days, every household did yajna every single day, and they took the raksha from that yajna. It can be the ashes from the burnt wood that has been used in the yajna. Sometimes they also took cow dung and then made it into a bhasma, and that bhasma would be added with certain other herbs. That's why it actually has got a very good fragrance. Then we also have heard of the Chita Bhasma, that is the funeral ashes that are collected. This happens especially in the Ujjaini Mahakala temple. They bring from a freshly cremated body, they bring the ashes, and that ashes is used to do the Abhisheka for Lord Shiva. That's not the Vibhuti that Vibhuti Pada is talking about. So Vibhuti is actually used to indicate something that is glorious. So the glorious thing can be a form also, such as an avatara, which has descended. We have seen Ramavatara, Krishna Avatara, where there is a descent of a deity, and that deity displays superhuman powers. For example, Krishna, with his little pink finger, he raises the Govardhana mountain. And here you have Rama shooting one arrow which pierces through 7 tough wood called Salabhanjana. Sapta Salabhanjana can happen. The Vibhuti of Ishvara can also be at once. It can be gross as well as subtle. There is a lovely song by Vasudevacharya, a beautiful song, which goes as Mama Hridaye Viharadayalu. Mama Hridaye Viharadayalu Mandaradhara Govinda Mukunda. So it's all one phrase. Oh Dayalu, please revel in my heart, Mama Hridaye. So the subtlest of the subtle. How can something manifest in one's heart unless it is totally subtle? So this Dayalu Parabhagavan can actually revel in your own heart. At the same time, he can also lift the Govardhana Parvata, which is gross in nature. So that means Vibhuti of an entity can be displayed in magnificent ways, in both gross and in subtle forms. And this Vibhuti is also an epithet for Lakshmi. That also we have seen. In the Gita, Sri Krishna says that Yadyat Vibhutimat Sarvam Srimadurjitameva, whatever that is glorious is all my manifestation. So Vibhuti can be at the most elementary level a bhasma, And obviously it doesn't apply to Yoga Shastra, but it can apply to the glories that can be displayed. And how that is displayed is a matter of analysis for us when we take up this word. Vibhuti also indicates great wealth and opulence. It is mystic powers. Vibhuti can also be mystic powers, superhuman powers, where a apparently human or subhuman species can actually expand into superhuman abilities. That is how a human being can become a devata because of the punya. So the vibhuti of punya is where an individual can get transformed into a devata, because in fact all the devatas are, in the past, they were all human beings. So therefore we have to contextually choose the appropriate meaning of the title of this pada. So what exactly does the Vibhuti Pada of the third chapter of Yoga Shastra, what does it indicate? It is the expansion of the yogi's personality into extraordinary, superhuman and divine qualities. That is the goal of Vibhuti Pada. We will call him as a heroic person, as a person of a superhuman being in human form. You might have heard of an extraordinary British writer, Thomas Carlyle. Thomas Carlyle was actually a leading writer of the Victorian era. He had actually a profound influence on 19th century art, literature, and philosophy, worth reading even today. He was the one who founded the London Library. We went all the way just because I wanted to pay a tribute to this great soul in UK, in London. Carlyle, he expounded the concept of the great man theory, who demonstrates a super intelligent, a superior intellect, a heroic courage, an extraordinary leadership ability, and at the same time a divine inspiration. So Carlyle's great man, superior intellect that demonstrates as heroic courage, which also translates into extraordinary leadership, and all of this is stemming from divine inspiration. 4 important factors are identified by Carlyle for a Vibhuti Purusha. A great man can be translated as a Vibhuti Purusha. Yoga Sutra, Vibhuti Pada, uses in this sense the word Vibhuti. A human hero who can develop himself into a superhuman divine person, which means that there can be 2 kinds of Vibhutis. There can be a human Vibhuti and there can be a divine Vibhuti. So for a divine Vibhuti to be experienced, it has to happen in the human realm. And therefore Krishna is saying, Yadyad Vibhuti Mat Sarvam. So the human excellence mirrors the divine excellence. So we shall see what a human being can do to reach as close as possible the divine Vibhuti. That is the purpose of Ashtanga Yoga. That is the purpose of Dhyana Samadhi. That is the need for the world. What does the world need? The world usually is populated by ordinary, mediocre or just above mediocre people. But it really looks for a Vibhuti Purusha all the time. And Patanjali Maharshi's theory or thesis here is every single person has the potential to become a Vibhuti Purusha. And for that, he is also saying, I am giving you the whole template of how an ordinary human being can become an extraordinary divine Vibhuti Purusha with some limitations. That also we have got to see. So that means there are two kinds of Vibhutis. One can be called as Ishvara Vibhuti and another can be called as human Vibhuti. First question, what is Ishvara Vibhuti and why we should even discuss Ishvara Vibhuti? Actually, we have discussed. We have already seen that Ishvara Vibhuti is where it is Klesha Karma Vipaka Ashayaihi Aparamushtaha Purusha Vishesha Ishvaraha. In the first chapter already we have defined Ishvara Vibhuti as the one who is free from Klesha. And Kleshas we have seen are 5 in number: Avidya, Asmita, Ragadvesha, Viniveshani. So, for the human being, the barrier for attaining Ishvara Vibhuti is Klesha. And therefore, how Ishvara Vibhuti and the difference between Ishvara Vibhuti and the human condition is only one single aspect, which is Klesha. And to attain Ishvara Vibhuti, the methodology given is Tajjapaha Tadartha Bhavanam. That has been established again in the first chapter. Contemplating and emulating the quality of Ishvara is the process by which an individual can get Ishvara Vibhuti. But Ishvara Vibhuti will never be attainable by an individual. There is always a shortfall. What are the reasons for that? There are 6 important Ishvara Vibhutis that can only be an ideal for a human being. But as close to the ideal as the human being goes, that close the individual's Vibhuti will be there with reference to Ishvara. There is a beautiful Shastra Vakya which defines Ishvara Vibhuti. Sarvajnata Truptihi Anadibodhaha Swatantrata Nityamalupta Shaktihi Ananta Shaktischa Vibhoho Viditnya Shadahurangani Maheshwarasya. For Ishvara, there are 6 powers. There is omniscience. Number 1. Ishvara is omniscient, Sarvajnata. Number 2 is Trupti. Now, this contentment, as far as Ishvara is concerned, he is ever contented. There was never a moment when he had any wants whatsoever. But human being, what is a human condition? We are all having some desire, but because of yoga, we can attain a contented state. But discontentment was already there. To that extent, there is a handicap. So why is it that Ishvara is ever contented? Because he is Anadibodha. Anadibodha means there was never a time when he did not have wisdom. There was never a time when he did not know, when it did not have jnana. Whereas for me, I have started with ajnana, and by means of yoga sadhana, I have overcome ajnana, and therefore still the traces or the samskaras of ajnana remains dormant. That also Patanjali Maharshi has established samskara sheshaha anya. You remember in last class we talked about it. When a person has gone into a perfect state of withdrawal of senses, pratyahara, only the samskaras remain. Whereas for Ishvara, there is no samskara residue whatsoever. And therefore, Ishvara is independent. Human being is still dependent on his body, mind, intellect, yoga, practice, sadhana, samadhi, etc. And therefore we can also increase various powers. We are going to see what those powers are as we study this chapter. Many powers accrue by means of going through the Ashtanga Yoga. In each one of those levels, Ishvara's Shakti is Ananta Shakti, which is infinite power. And therefore, in all these 6 qualities, man is no match for Ishvara. So therefore, up front, when we are talking about Vibhuti Yoga, we must make up our mind that Ishvara Vibhuti is only an ideal for us. As close we get to Ishvara Vibhuti as possible by using Ashtanga Yoga. We are no match because we have limited knowledge. We have to work immensely hard to become contented. It's Chapadi Dhava. It is ever existing, undecaying power. Alupta Shakti. Shakti is power. Lopa means defective. Alupta means free from defects. Then Ananta Shakti. It's an endless, infinite power. Those are the 6. So, what are the baggage with which human beings come? This has to be recognized even as we are getting into Ashtanga Yoga. For limited knowledge, Swadhyaya we have to do. How much of Swadhyaya we can do for our 100 years of life? Then what happens? We have to carry it over to our next Janma. And we have to, as I said, we have to work immensely hard to be contented. Kulashekara Mani calls Trishna Toya Taranga. This Trishna or desire is like the wave after wave after wave rising one after the other. And we are ever in our avidya, in ignorance. Because we are constantly in ignorance, every time we attempt to overcome ignorance, we discover we have new sets of ignorances. You resolve one understanding, clarify, misunderstanding, remove. But then you will discover one more problem, one more doubt, one more dilemma, always springing up. And therefore, when will Tapas Swadhyaya Ishvara Pranidhana end? And we are ever dependent. Do you want to do Swadhyaya? There must be texts available. There must be other learned people who are writing. Or we must be able to understand what our earlier sages have written. For that we have to know language, we have to know culture, we have to know tradition, we have to do ritual. Endless difficulty. What about our Shakti? We have Ichcha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Jnana Shakti. But these Shaktis should dwindle as the body weakens, as the mind weakens, and therefore the power is finite. Even physical power, you see, many animals are much more stronger than this. We cannot match even physical strength of even lower animals. We have to work within these limitations. Then, what outcomes are expected from Ashtanga Yoga? As far as the Vibhutis are concerned, is to be dealt with. Many Vibhutis, which almost mirror Ishvara's Shakti, can be achieved. While we cannot get the same Shakti as Ishvara, we can go as close to Ishvara's Shakti as possible. We can increase our jnana. We can keep increasing our jnana actually infinitely. Every single day we can add in these 6 of the qualities that we talked about. We can definitely practice contentment. We can definitely practice contentment without giving up growth. Contentment need not be a static situation. Then we can go on chipping away with our avidya. The more and more we depend on ourselves and the less and less we expect from the society, to that extent we become more and more independent. Swatantrata, the third one, also can be achieved to a great extent. And as far as at least the spiritual power is concerned, we can keep on adding to that spiritual power, and even the body cannot come and stop with the growth of the spiritual power. And Ananta Shakti, obviously, we cannot get. So we also have seen many evidences of those who have gone as close to Ishvara Vibhuti as possible. Say, for example, Srishti Karya, that is the creation of the universe, is definitely not delegated to the human being. It is in the hands of Ishvara. But we have the story of Vishwamitra. Trishanku, one of the kings of Ayodhya, comes to Vishwamitra and says, I want to go to heaven with my mortal body. Just because Vasishtha says no, just because Vasishtha's children say no, since Vasishtha and his children are all my enemies, Vishwamitra says, I will send you to Svarga with your mortal body. It is only Indra in selected situations will come down and he will ask, hey Arjuna, come get into my chariot. I want you to come to Svarga. Remember, he takes Arjuna to Svarga. Then Kandavadana takes place, so on and so forth. You know the Mahabharata story. And he comes back. There, Ishvara took Arjuna to heaven, whereas Vishwamitra sends Trishanku to heaven. Another episode, Ravana. Ravana can create a formidable defense system. In fact, it's a very interesting study to see Hanuman's observation when he goes to Lanka, what kind of a fortification that Ravana had built. We may say this is Purana, this is Itihasa, that it is fiction, that is, it is imagination. But the discussion here is that some record is available where human beings have gone into superhuman abilities. At the end of this chapter, we will also see that by following the Ashtanga Yoga, superhuman qualities can be achieved even by human beings. Only thing is we are not that committed to get all of them, that is all. So Ravana was a very great devotee of Shiva. In fact, he says that I want to see you, Bhagavan Shiva, in person before me. It is not a pratyaksha in my awareness, in my conscience, in my dream. I want you to physically come in front of me. I want to feel and touch your person. How can we bring Shiva? How is it defined? Nirgunam, Nishkalam, Shantam, Manovachamagocharam. He is Nirgunam. There is no Trigunas. When there is no Trigunas, how can there be form? He has no indicators or marks, Nishkalam. And there is no activity, Shantam. Not available to thought. Not reachable by words. That subtle is the concept of Shiva. How can you know? Dhyana yoga anugata apashyan. You can only see that kind of a vision in Dhyana yoga. But the project for Ravana was not that. He said, I want to see you physically. So look at Ravana's eminence. He can demand Ishvara Anugraha, he can demand grace of Ishvara, and so he uses a Shastra which says, Yoginam Upakaraya Svechaya Grihyate Tanum Japa Puja Nimittaya Nishkalam Sakalam Bhavet. Ishvara Vibhuti is, even though he is a Nishkala, Niranjana, Shanta, Mano, Vachama, Gochara, all those epithets we used, for the sake of a yogi, the Vibhuti of a yogi can persuade Ishvara. For the sake of japa and puja, he can bring him down in human form, in a visible form. This is the power of Ishvara Pranidhana. That is the link. Man can compel Ishvara to present himself in the form that we want. Is it not a vibhuti? There is another story of Ravana which is also apt here. Ravana wanted to have everything that is glorious in his kingdom. So he would go around all the three worlds. Whatever beautiful is there, whatever glorious is there, he would just appropriate it and bring it and establish in Lanka. Something similar to what you will see in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, or the British. I can't bring the pyramid, so okay, I'm going to create a pyramid in Las Vegas. So Ravana actually arrested all these Navagrahas. You are saying my horoscope and future is decided by the movement of the planets in my horoscope. I am going to drag them and place them in the appropriate house that I want. That's the Vibhuti. So he arrests all the Navagrahas. He wanted to fly everywhere, and he wanted an aeroplane which could expand to accommodate the number of people he wanted to carry. So Pushpaka Vimana was with his brother Kubera. Takes it. He brings all the beautiful women everywhere. All the apsaras were all in his harem. Of course, the last straw was abducting Sita. But then, at this point of time, look at his Vibhuti. He wanted to, because he was such a great devotee of Shiva, he says, Lanka is in the southern sea. This Shiva is sitting up there in Himalaya on Kailasa mountain. So whenever I want to have a darshan of Shiva, I have to go all across the country from south to north. I want Shiva to be in Lanka. So he goes there, puts his 10 hands under Kailasa and lifts. And of course, Parvati gets disturbed that the whole mountain is shaking. And with his toe, he presses the finger of Ravana. Then what he does, look at his vibhuti. He sings Rigveda mantras in Samagana. He was the one who started Samagana. The Mahanyasa Puja Vidhi of Shiva was given by Ravana. Later on it was modified by Bodhayana Maharshi, which we use in our rituals. Shiva refuses to show his form in person. So he sits in yajna. He had 10 heads. He takes a sword, chops off a head and offers yajna. In the yajna kunda, he offers each one of his heads. 9 of his heads he offers in this yajna. When the 10th head he was about to chop off and kill himself, Shiva presents himself before him in the form in which he wanted to see. The form in which he wanted to see Ravana immortalized in a Shiva Tandava Stotra. And then Shiva gives him the boon saying that you cannot be killed by anybody chopping off your heads. Later on, of course, Agastya Maharshi comes and then tells him, you shoot him in his heart. That's a different thing. So there are many Purana stories where there is Manushya, because of yoga's power, can actually attain many vibhutis. So the Vibhuti Paada has lists of many such provinces that one can get. But the clear message that Bhagavan Patanjali gives is, yes, you can get superhuman powers, but when abused, it becomes the fall of a yogi. When it is used for Loka Kalyana and Loka Sangraha, then the path to Kaivalya, or the next chapter we are going to study, it becomes easy. Hanuman had Ashtasiddhis, all the desirable siddhis because of his yoga. But since he used his siddhis for the sake of Loka Kalyana, he actually made him immortal. You remember that we include Hanuman's name in a list of immortals whenever we take a sacred bath. Ashwathamo, Balihi, Vyasaha, Hanumanscha, Vibhishanaha, Krupaha, Parashuramascha, Saptaite, Chirajivinaha. 7 immortals. Ashwathama, Kripa, Bali and Parashurama, 4 of them, they actually abused their yogic powers. And therefore their yogic powers were taken away. To give an example of what happens when vibhuti are misused, those 4 examples are given. Examples of who used their siddhis for Loka Kalyana, Vyasa, Hanuman and Vibhishana, they became immortal as the proper users of vibhuti. So in this chapter 37th sutra, Patanjali Maharshi warns us, te samadhau upasargaha vyuthane siddhaya. We have got to remember that every time we contemplate on the siddhis. In samadhi, all these vibhutis are obstacles. But when in the wakeful state from the samadhi, they appear as siddhis. So with that caveat, we have got to study that by following Ashtanga Yoga. Of course, right now we are only doing Shravana. We are listening to the various Ashtanga Yoga. Just imagine if we took all these Ashtanga Yogas in seriously and we practiced, many siddhis do come to us. But we have to be aware that while Manushya Siddhi can approach the power of Ishvara Siddhi, Ishvara Vibhuti can never be attained. Manushya Vibhuti has got to be tempered with Loka Kalyana, Loka Sangraha. That is why when Kalakeya and other Rakshasas went and hid in the ocean, Agastya Maharshi, the greatest yogi of that time, was asked, can you please expose these hiding demons? So he goes and scoops up and takes the aposhana of the entire ocean, revealing these Rakshasas, another great siddhi used for Loka Kalyana. And that's one of the reasons why we consider Agastya Maharshi as a very great rishi, and we venerate him, especially in South India. He is highly, highly venerated. Next question that we have to deal before we enter into the chapter. Why the second pada concludes without completing all the 8 aspects of Ashtanga Yoga? Only 5 were considered in the last one. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama and Pratyahara. Dhyana, Dharana, Samadhi were not dealt with in the second chapter. Why did Patanjali Maharshi do that? So let's look at the architecture of the text. The first text established the philosophy. It's called Siddhanta. So the second was focused on everything that is external in nature. In every one of those 5, something or the other with respect to the outside world is necessary. It's called Bahiranga. Ranga actually means field, stage. Bahiranga, which is staged from outside. Look at our body, Deha. Look at our all senses, Indriyas. Look at the Chitta. All of these things are external. To whom? To the seer, isn't it? To the drashta. The seer or the drashta is the one who is looking at my Deha. The drashta is the one who is perceiving the changes in my sense organs. The drashta is the one who is trying to control the chitta vritti. Therefore, all of them is bahiranga for the drashta. Little doubt can arise regarding pratyahara. As far as yama is concerned, it is absolutely no doubt. It is ahimsa, satya and all that external. Niyama, shaucha, all those things external. Asana, body external. Pranayama, breath external to drashta. But what about pratyahara? Pratyahara also relates to the outside, because we have to pluck our senses away from their contact with the Vishaya, with the subject matter of the Indriyas. And therefore that is also Bahiranga. So Patanjali Maharshi is focusing the entire second chapter only in Bahiranga sadhana. Even Tapaswadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, Bahiranga. Klesha, Bahiranga. Because if Klesha was intrinsic to Drashta, then there is no way you can remove it. Klesha, isn't it? Since klesha is a superimposition on the drashta or the seer, called the upadhi, it can be removed. And therefore, appropriately, klesha is also part of consideration in as bahiranga only. So it is only in dharana that we truly start moving inside. The third chapter, Vibhuti Paada, has got 55 sutras. So as you saw in this chapter, vibhutis or vishesha siddhis, we can also translate it as elements of human excellence, are described. Why should that be described? Because as we are practicing the Ashtanga Yoga, some of these siddhis will come, and then either we succumb to those siddhis or we get over them. Let that come when it happens. Why mention it in the sutra? Because remember, in sutra, brevity is an important condition. The reason is, even the sage has to do marketing. He has to promote. You take to Veda, to Ashtanga Yoga. Without Ashtanga Yoga, you cannot get Kaivalya. Without Ashtanga Yoga, you cannot get to Drishta Swarupe Avasthanam. So here are some benefits also you get. Phala. Because there is a saying, when there is no phala, when there is no desirable outcome, mandopi na pravartate. Even a fool will not do anything unless there is some profit out of it. So Patanjali Maharshi had to say that I have to inspire the practitioner that certain siddhis do accrue to him. This we see every day. Why should an organization set up competitive benchmarks for promotions and for raises and rewards? Why should they do it? And why should organizations make it clear? Now, this is your job description. As long as you are meeting this job description, you will be holding your job. Do you want a promotion? Do you want a reward? You have to do more than this. So, how do you quantify that? Constantly quantification of excellent performance is made. Isn't that what we do in our annual reviews with our employees? When we sit with our employees, what do? We talk about what they have achieved. Secondly, we say where the institution has to go in this quarter, this year, and how can you contribute for the achievement of that particular goal. And when you do, what can happen? Not what will happen, what can happen. You might get a promotion, you might get a... So therefore, we have to talk about the siddhis as some benefits that accrue even before a person attains Kaivalya. That's why Swami Vivekananda said there is no Vedanta on an empty stomach. There has to be some incentive. Purana and history is full of sadhakas looking for siddhis only. Every personality you say, after attaining these siddhis, the question of getting trapped or getting out of the trap is the issue. But look at the confidence of Patanjali Maharshi. If you follow Ashtanga Yoga, you will get these siddhis with absolute certainty, he says. In this uncertain world, he says there is certainty that you will in fact attain all these siddhis. And then he also gives a warning, don't get trapped into it because you can fall down. Question. How can one achieve these siddhis? Let us say we give up our practice with pratyahara. I have done yama niyama. I am socially beneficial to others because I am practicing yama, ahimsa, satya, etc. I am practicing personal qualities, shaucha, santosha, and therefore I am internally happy. I am externally peaceful, internally happy. I am taking good care of my body with asana. I am having good vital energy with pranayama. And I am also able to unhook all my sense organs from potential sorrow that the various objects outside can give me by doing pratyahara. I can get the wisdom to walk away from a situation before it gets terrible. I should not get into Ukraine unless I have absolutely a confidence that I will win. How many factors were left unconsidered? The underestimation of the resistance, overestimation of their own military. Today he is saying, I'm not going to constrict university students. Because what happens if all the university students are all drafted and 50, 60, 70% of them die? What happens to the future of the country? Why all these things were not thought through? It is because there was some kind of yoga there in taking these decisions, but it was incomplete. So for us also, yamaniyama asana pranayama pratyahara, if we stop there, then two things will happen. Number one, no siddhis accrue to us. And number two, the whole yoga project itself has collapsed. So therefore, he has to introduce, even to achieve siddhis, you need samyama is required. There is a beautiful Sanskrit text called Sarvadarshana Sangraha. That is, it gives a summary of all the important schools of philosophy, including Buddhism, Jainism. This was authored by Madhavacharya, who is also known as Vidyaranya, who actually founded the Vijayanagara Empire. In fact, we had a very good talk on Vidyaranya on Pratibha Mancha recently. So this Vidyaranya in this text of on Yoga Shastra, he defines Samyama. Samyama by Vidyaranya is defined as Dharana Dhyana Samadhi Trayam Antaranga Samyama Padavachyam. Antaranga Samyama. Antaranga means inside. Bahiranga is outside. All the samyama, that is control, samyama, that pada, that word is used in the context of the three. That is dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So it is only where the samyama, that is dhyana, dharana, samadhi, are employed, siddhis are possible. Why this definition is critical? It is because in everyday language, we use samyama as control of the senses. Control of the senses is pratyahara, as far as Yoga Shastra is concerned. But here, it is the dhyana, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, trio, or the triad is called samyama. Therefore, the text starts, the first sutra, Desha Bandhaha Chittasya dharana. Desha means a place, a region, a part of the body also. Bandha means containing, fixing. That is the fixing of the chitta on one point, on one region, or one aspect of our body is called as dharana or concentration. So many locations in the body are identified. It can be in the center of the eyebrow, tip of the nose, in the heart, Hridaya Kamala Madhye. Now all of these things are fine when we choose a locus in our own body. But what is the problem? What if the body has got the antarayas? See, we have actually studied the text in toto with reference to every sutra. Go to chapter number 130, 31 sutra. Chapter 130, 31 identifies what obstacles can come in yoga. Take the body for example. It can be afflicted by disease, vyadhi. It can have mental dukkha. It can have ahankara, which is identified as daurmanasya. All of these things can actually disturb our samyama. Once upon a time, there was a Zen master. This Zen master was an extraordinary archer, and he also taught archery. So, Zen is jhana. So, in this master had taught dharana. Because dharana is on the body is very, very critical as far as archery is concerned. He had an extraordinary student and who very quickly learned all the techniques of archery and he mastered it. So what was the limit of ability of the archer in this school? You shoot an arrow at a target and the arrow must go exactly hit at that point. Whatever is the dimension of the tip of the arrow, that is the target. No region, it is actually that pinpointed. So you should shoot an arrow there from a distance which is impossible for ordinary archers. Then you must shoot a second arrow which will go and stick to the back of the first arrow which is stuck. Two things should happen. One is it should stick to the back of the arrow. The first arrow must have got embedded into the target deep enough that the second arrow will not remove it from its target. That is the skill that was demanded. And this student had such dharana, he could do that. But look at the antarayas that come. Along with this siddhi, along with every siddhi listed in the Vibhuti Paada, all those siddhis have to be vetted against the antarayas that are listed in 30-31 of the first chapter. Daurmanasya for our hero student was arrogance. He would boast with his fellow students of what a great achiever he is and how the others were all lesser mortals. And this was putting down all his classmates. And the master was observing all this. And he had to correct the dharana power of his eminent student without destroying him. He could have been banished from the school. But that was not the idea. He has to take him to the next step. This is the power of the Guru. So one day, this master takes him to the edge of a huge ravine, wide, very deep. A tall, slender tree had fallen across, creating a bridge of this ravine. If you step on it, it would wobble, but not break. So the teacher, with his bow and arrow, walks to the middle of this fallen tree. He is right in the middle of the ravine. Very dangerous position. There he stands for a distant target. He shoots one arrow, shoots another arrow, and it goes and embeds itself into the back of the previous arrow. Walks back and tells his star students, now you go and do it. So somehow the student already had trepidation because of the danger. So he steps on this tree, it starts wobbling. Even more scared. We had gone to one of these, have you seen they build a makeshift bridge with rope across the rivers in northwestern Karnataka, across some of the rivers which are very deep, almost canyons. So they build this rope, and the whole bridge wobbles when you are walking. You have to hold on both sides. It's pretty scary experience, even though it's very sturdy. So our hero, the student, goes into the middle, looks down, and is completely unnerved. He could not even lift his bow. And he starts screaming, "Sir, help me, I'm going to fall down. I cannot hold myself." The teacher saw the anxiety and the fear in him. So he walks across, holds his hand, and then walks him back. And then he tells him, "Do you know why you could not shoot? It is because you allowed your dharana to be disturbed by fear." Look at the paradigm shift when we come to the concept of dharana. Concentration cannot be disturbed by any of the antarayas. And therefore Patanjali Maharshi uses chittasya bandha, because it is the mind which creates the vrittis, dukkha, daurmanasya, and all those vrittis, that has got to be arrested. This is exactly what the Mundaka Upanishad also says. For a person who has got to get such concentration, sharavat tanmayo bhavet, he must become the arrow, not the archer. That kind of dharana is deshabandha chittasya dharanam. We'll see more in our next class. Thank you.